Hello colour cavers and welcome back to our colour along in the jewellery box by Hanna Karlzon, and here we are with our lovely hand and posy. I am really pleased to be filming in actual proper natural light today. So if you remember last time we did all of our foliage and we did our skin tone hand as well. So today what we're going to do is we're going to start with our roses, and we're going to use some lovely shades of red for that, and after that we're going to move on down and we'll see how much we can get through. To get started, I have picked out 3 red pencils. Now just to jog your memory, when we picked out our colour scheme we used the colour wheel and we used a tetrad colour scheme. So we have already used the green, which is down here, and we've also decided that we're going to use the reds as well, so that's the kind of basis that I've picked the colours from. Now to fit in with that colour scheme and keep the picture cohesive, because it is quite a simple page, that still leaves us purple and it also leaves us yellow as well down in this corner, so we're just following this rectangle here. So the colours that I have picked out for our rose, I've picked out 3 shades of red, and as usual there is a mid, a deep and a light tone. So I have here Madder, which is going to be the darkest pencil, and that is 142. Again, I'm trying to show you in the light, there we go. I also have with me Deep Red, which is 223. See if I can get that to focus. Hello, there we go. And the lightest colour is Pale Geranium Lake, which is 121. So those are the pencils that you need to get out if you want to follow along. I am also pleased to report that the sun is shining today, which is a great relief, because as I've been moaning about repeatedly in my videos, this last week or so it has just been so dark and so dingy and just not very good at all. So it's nice to see the sun shining. Okay, so that is me sharpened and ready to go. I have had quite a few new subscribers in the last week or so, so I'd like to say hello to everybody that has just joined us. If this is the first colouring video that you're picking up, you can go back to the first part of this colour along if you want to start from the beginning and actually follow along with what I'm doing. The link's in the card here just now, but I'll also leave a link in the description if you want to watch this and maybe go back to the other one later. So welcome everybody that's new, it's nice to have you and thank you for subscribing. I am using Polychromos Pencils for this picture. Just wanted to reiterate that for those of you that are new. So we're going to start, as always, as I always do, with my lightest colour, which is the Pale Geranium Lake. And this is just to map out where I'm going to be using these red pencils. First of all, we have these little buds here. So with a very light hand, using the side of my pencil, which is reasonably sharp, I'm just going to pop down a really light layer in each of these. And it's just really so that we know where we're going. You know, you've got an idea in your head. It's always good to plan these things out. These pictures will always turn out better if you do a bit of planning. So I'm going to move straight to my mid-tone, and that is the deep red. So we're going to have to think about light sources here. Now it's not too difficult for the buds because they are encased in these outer leaves. So technically they should be very dark, and they should be dark, you know, for all of the area that we can see. However, we want to make our picture aesthetically pleasing. So we're just going to very lightly, using this mid-tone, I'm just going to start filling in along this bottom edge here. Our light source is coming from the top left, if you've been following along with what I'm doing. So kind of going on that principle, that's the way we want to build the colour up. And it's just a very light hand, and I'm just letting that trail off into the initial coat of the Pale Geranium Lake that we left. And I'm taking my darkest colour here, which is Madder, and again I'm just following along that right hand line. This is a lovely rich colour, I really like it, and that is just going to give us some really nice depth. Now I'm going to bring it across down at the bottom here, just because it's kind of like tucked in a little corner, and up around this edge as well, because bear in mind that this side and this part of the leaf is going to be casting a shadow over that part of the bud, but I'm going really easy here. Now back to my mid-tone, because I want to start to blend this out, so back to my deep red, and I'm going back over what I've done, but I'm just bringing it up slightly past that darkest colour, like so. There we go. And then taking that lightest colour again, I just want to go over everything, start to smooth it out a little bit, and leave that slightly paler section just along the middle there, just in here. That's looking not too bad. Now I want to take my darkest colour because I really want this red to stand out. So I'm taking the madder again and I'm just going to darken down. I'm just going back over where I'd already used it, but I'm just going to build up a few little layers on top of it there. And you can see how it's starting to sort of pop out a bit now. There we go. And then just up round here again. Very, very subtle. And then I'm going to take my pale geranium lake again and just go over that middle bit, just very, very lightly. Up round the top there as well. There we go. So we're going to use that principle and we're going to do the same thing on these two as well. So bearing in mind I've already got my lightest layer down, I'm going in with the deep red, which is it is the mid-tone. And I'm just doing exactly the same thing here. I'm not going to do anything different. As I say, they're quite ensconced by the surrounding leaves, so I'm not going to spend too much time worrying about the light source and one thing and another. Go back to my madder now and fill this in. So we are edging closer to the 12 days of Cavemas, which I am super excited about. Currently, I still have a few videos to film. I tend to film them in sequence, although I have quite a sort of rigid schedule. So obviously I'm filming this one just now, and there are a few more that I have to film before I start the Cavemas videos. So I have got a lot of work in front of me over the next week or so. But more importantly, before we get to filming the videos, later on today I am going to take out all of our festive decorations. I'm going to remove them from their storage boxes, and I'm going to decorate the cave. Because let's face it, who doesn't like a festive cave? So that is my plan for later today. And generally I'm the kind of person, I love Christmas, I really do. I don't love it for the actual holiday. I just like the fact that it's a time where people have time off and I get to spend time with my family and everyone can, you know, sort of chill out together. That's why I love Christmas. I just love having everyone all together. And because of that, every year I usually take my decorations out at the beginning of the month, but I don't put them all up straight away. And we always have a real tree as well, and if anybody is used to having a real tree, if you put it up too early, you'll know that all the needles fall off it and you've got a bald tree by Christmas. So that's kind of the last thing to go up. So I tend to just put decorations up in dribs and drabs over the month, and it gives me, you know, that nice Christmassy feeling. Anyway, getting excited about Christmas. Let's do the smaller rows first. And that'll let us get a feel for our colours and where we're putting things, and it might make it a bit easier when we do the larger one. So once again, I'm just taking my pale geranium lake, which is my lightest colour, and I'm just going to go over all these petals exactly the same as before. Just really lightly, just enough so that you can see the colour on the paper. We'll get that going, and I have to say the red looks really nice next to that green, and it's a little bit festive, why not? So we get this down. Again, you don't have to be careful here, don't worry about it. You'll see your pencil strokes, you can see mine here, absolutely not a problem, because by the time that you've put the rest of your layers down and we've worked on each petal individually, you're not going to see those pencil strokes as much. There we go. I'll pop that down. So if you think about a rose and the way that it's actually structured, in the middle all the petals are quite close together, and as it blooms and as the bud opens, these outer leaves splay out more and more, which gives you that lovely shape and the lovely pattern that you can see here. So just purely from a sort of scientific point of view and thinking about your light source, the parts in the centre will be darker. However, we still want a little bit of contrast so that you can tell and separate one petal from another. So we're going to go very, very gently here, but I'm going to go in with my madder, my darkest colour. And in these sections here, I am just going to leave an accent of white. Now remember again, the light source is coming in from up here, so it's going to hit on the outer part on the right hand side. So using that madder, I'm leaning medium pressure and I'm just leaving a tiny bit of white there. You can just see that and no more. That is just what we want, and it's enough to still give the impression that it is in the middle of the flower and that's sort of tucked in underneath because you've used your darkest colour. And I'm going to do the same with the section next to it. Follow the line art with my madder and just going to leave that little white spot just on the top right hand side there. And I'm going to go over that and make it really, really deep and rich. As I say, it's right in the middle, so it's going to be pretty dark. And we're just going to keep going over that. There we go, look at that. Absolutely lovely. Really, really like that. All right then, so those are the kind of tightest parts. So let's go on to the next sort of ring of petals with the middle colour, which is the deep red. Now, this doesn't have to be an exact science. Again, think more about the aesthetics of what you're doing rather than getting everything technically correct according to the light source. So this petal here, it might be sticking up, you know, it might be protruding slightly, so the light might hit the left hand side. So using the deep red, I'm going to go on that opposite side and we're going to bring it up. And again, we're just going to leave little white rim there, and you can kind of graduate it. It is a bit of a tight space, granted, but you can try and graduate that out a little bit if you feel you can squeeze it in without it causing you too many issues. And we'll just go, let's try and go methodically now. So we'll come up to the next one, and that's going to be quite dark in there because it's sort of around the corner, if you know what I mean, compared to where the light source is. And we'll bring this up and out. And we've got a bit more room for a bit of graduation here, so lighten up your pressure as you get towards the left hand side of the page. I'll just darken that down along the line art again. And I'm going to bring this all the way up and just put a really light layer. And I'm going to take my madder and just run it round that sort of semicircular part there. And take my pale geranium lake, and I'm just going to go over everything. That's just to get a bit of richness. It's not really about the colour, it's just about building up the layers. Alright, that's looking okay so far. And around here I think we'll go deep red in this corner. Again, nice light layers. Just follow the line art on the right hand side. You're working towards the light source, go towards the light. And we'll just build that up round. Now the shape of this part suggests that it might be hanging over the top of the part that we're actually colouring, so I'm going to take that deep red all the way up to the line, just in that little kink there, and then I'll leave that little bit of white there. It's all very well, I mean, unless you're going for sort of photorealistic colouring, you do have a little bit of leeway in terms of where you lay your pencil down, and I do think, especially with colouring, it is nice to think more about the aesthetics sometimes than it being, you know, very technically correct. Back to the pale geranium lake, and I'm going over the top of what I've done already, and I'm going to bring that up to the edge, and I'm just going to leave a little bit of white on this side, just at the very, very top. Right, okay, so we've decided that this one might be sort of curling over in this direction, which is why we filled in this part here. So what I'm going to do is, again, taking my deep red, my middle colour, I'm going to assume that it's sitting slightly flatter, and what that's going to do is the light is going to shine across the leaf, kind of like you would with a highlight on hair. So I'm going to take the colour from either corner of this petal, and I'm going to leave it pale in the middle, and again, that just gives it a little bit of variety as well. So I'm doing this with the deep red, which is the mid-tone, if you remember. And I'm just going to lighten that up in the middle there. I'll go back over this side again. Now, using the madder, I'm just going to go into the corners here, because that's kind of tucked in, isn't it? Make that nice and dark in there. Because again, you're coming round more to the underside of the flower here, so it's not going to get as much light because the light's coming more from the top. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my deep red again, and I'm going to go over this section. I'm leaving this part because it will be getting more light. And I'm just going to blend that in and then lighten it up here. And then I'm going to take my lightest colour and just make this a little bit more sort of cohesive. And again, I'm barely touching the paper. You don't need to put a lot of pressure on it. Work on that death grip, folks. Now, Hanna has put in some sort of indicators here that this petal is coming up from the base of the flower, so it is naturally going to be darker in at that where these little lines are coming out, and that's what we want to try and emulate here. And again, it's going to be darker around this side because it's the bottom part of the flower. So up here we want to put the darkest colour in, but it's going to be very, very subtle. So I'm just going to put a little line, and I'm not going to do much more than that all the way around here. And then when I get to this underside, I'm going to start to make that thicker and pull it out a bit more. And the same here. Now you've got to remember this is a 3D object, so even though this is down at the bottom, to me that looks as if it's sitting up and out more, so there might be a little bit of light that hits the edge of that petal right at the bottom there. So we're going to try and bear that in mind, and I'm going to my mid colour now. And I'm just going to pop that in there. And I'm only just going up over the madder. I'm not taking it much further up than that until I get down to this bottom edge again, where Hanna has left us the lines, and then leave that little bit exposed at the very, very tip there. And with the pale geranium lake, I'm just going to build up now, build over the top of it. All the way around there. And I'm going to bring this right to this edge here. Again, just thinking that it might get slightly less light than these sort of upper parts. And I'm just going to blend all these colours together now, because they look as if they're sitting quite separate. And obviously it's all part of the same petal, so it's important that we squish all these together, make it one. There we go, I'm just leaving that little white edge. Now I'm not happy with this part here, it's not dark enough for my liking, so I'm back in with my madder. And I'm just going to go over that again. And with these little parts, these little sort of flicky lines, I'm going to go over them with the madder, because I think they're supposed to be like creases, so we want that to be slightly darker because they will be indented, you know, they'll be sitting in slightly. And again, back just with my pale geranium lake. I have to say that pencil is a bit of a mouthful, that colour. I do find that a lot with the Polychromos pencils, and I'm sure I've said this before as well, that they're obviously translated from the German, you know, into English for the colour names. And in German, a lot of the words do stem from the same language, and you can see similarities in some of the English words, but when you translate them, a lot of them are just a lot of English words that have been kind of stuck together. And I know I have some German subscribers, so please feel free to chime in and leave me a comment here. But for example, an aeroplane is a Flugzeug, which is literally translated as a flying thing. So that is why some of the colours, the names are a bit sort of long-winded, but when you're trying to repeat them, you know, when you're doing something like this, it becomes a bit of a mouthful. I'm not complaining though, I quite like German. It's quite a difficult language to learn, but it's not bad. Right, okay, so we've got this one down here now, and that is very much underneath, so we're going to go mostly with the madder here, getting that nice and dark, and I'm pressing quite hard there, right in underneath there, and just feather out that edge just to no more. And I'm just going to jump straight to the pale geranium lake, and I'm going to fill that in. That is lovely and rich, that looks so good, so good. Right, so we've got that side done, that looks okay, doesn't it? Right, when we're thinking about this part now, this is obviously like a curvature, so again, probably lighter around this little corner, and it will get darker as we come round here. So let's try with that, and again I'm going to go in with the madder, and by making that very dark in there again, that suggests that that particular part is tucked in behind this section here, which we decided was overhanging. So that fits in quite well, and it makes sense. So nice and heavy, and then I'm just lightening up my pressure as I head round here. And I'm going to follow the bottom line here. Just get that really nice and rich and dark, and then lighten up the pressure as I head up towards the more to the middle of the flower. And then in with the deep red, just start building that up now. And you can see I'm leaving a tiny bit of white again. That is something that I like to do. Excuse me, if you don't like this style and it's not something that you want to do, rather than leaving the white, you can take a really, really pale colour. You know, if you'd rather not see the white of the paper, and I'm just going to give you a suggestion. Something like the Rose Carmine, which is more of a pinky red. It is a lot paler than the pale Geranium Lake, which is quite funny. But you could use something like that if you didn't want the white of the paper showing through instead. That would look just as nice. But again, you would have to be very light-handed with it, because compared to the reds that we're using, it is very pink and it will stand out. So round here now, we're coming round to this side of the flower. I'm back with my madder again, and what I want to do is on the left-hand side, make that nice and dark. Again, thinking about the light source, if this is the outer edge of the petal, it might get a bit of the light. So we're kind of swapping over here because we've gone round the corner again. That changes the dynamic and where the light source is going to fall. I'll take my deep red. I'm trying to keep this quite pale down here. I will join it up in a minute, you'll see what I'm going to do. But we just want to get a bit more colour down and get this sorted out the way that we like it. So there we go, I'll just join that up very gently. And I've got my pale Geranium Lake, and I'm just going to go over what I've done. Just, again, get that richness built up. That's what we want. We want nice, vibrant colours. You don't want your page to look really, really washed out. Now, much as I have a light hand and I like paler pictures, it still has to look as if it's been coloured in properly and it's not, you know, like half finished. So that's not a good look. We don't want that. So there we are, I'm just kind of tidying that up. Right, so that's sort of closed off this part in the middle, so we can get that finished off. So I've got madder, and I'm just going to block colour that tiny bit in there because it is a teeny weeny little space. I'm going to make it nice and dark and rich. And with this part, I'm going to do a smiley face. Get that smiley line, and then just lighten up my pressure. Feather it out a little bit, leaving that tiny, tiny spot of white. And that's just to help differentiate between the petals that are beside it. And this one here, again, we're kind of round the corner, so with the madder, I'm going to fill that in really dark. And as I come round here, I'm going to start to leave that little white rim again. It's really good to have sharp, sharp pencils when you're doing this too, because it just gives you more precision and you're less likely to sort of end up with a you know, really sort of squashed together, uneven part, and you're less likely to go outside the lines as well. There we go. So that's kind of leaving a little bit of a highlight. And I've just finished that off with the deep red. And again, when it's close up like this, it does look quite messy, but I promise you, when you see it zoomed out, it's, you know, when you see the bigger picture, it is very nice indeed. Right, so I'm sticking with the deep red here for this last part of the sort of front of the flower, if you like. And again, that's going to be dark in there because it's on the dark side of the flower. And I'm just going to graduate that all the way up here, like so, and then put in a darker line, still using the same pencil against here, and just work that out, blend it out a little bit. And I'm going to take the pale Geranium Lake and go over what I've done and just push it right up to that line, leaving the tiniest little sliver of white. There we go. Down here, this one again seems to be down the bottom, so going on the same proviso as we did with this part here, it's probably going to be a little bit paler, maybe around this side and at this bottom part. Again, up to you, artistic license, why not? So I'm going to use the madder in this corner because that's tucked in, that's definitely going to be dark. And I'm going to do the same as I did with the other folds, if you like, or creases should I say, they're not really folds. And I'm just going to pop a little bit of that in there as well. And I'm going to keep that madder to a minimum, switch back to the deep red, keep that nice and light, run it along there, and there we go. So you can see the idea behind what I'm trying to explain just by looking at it. You know, there's much more light here, so that part's going to be paler. So I'm going to stick mostly with the pale geranium lake now. And again, just really, really lightly. I'm hardly touching the paper at all. Just go back over that. Blend it in with the other colours and just build it up. Just go back over it. And get it until it's, you know, until it looks good, till I'm happy with it the way I like it. So moving up round here, if we take this next one, this is going to be very, very dark in here because it has these other parts in front of it, and the palest edge is going to be on the outside again. So I'll take my madder as before and just run a line down there, medium pressure. And it's going to be quite dark in this corner too, so I'm going to kind of go out a little bit with it like that. And then start to tail it off and just feather this edge as well so I can work in my other colours. Take the deep red. Really lightly, little circular motions. I'm going to fill that in there because it's kind of sitting in behind the other one. So take my pale geranium lake over everything and pull that right up to the edge, leaving a teeny weeny bit of white, teeny weeny. And then using my madder again, which you might want to sharpen now if it's starting to blunt down, is just follow those little lines. Maybe add a little bit more in there as well. Now, this one here, I'm not entirely sure about, but I think it might be sitting over the top of the other part that we haven't coloured. So I would take my, in fact I'm going to take the deep red. I'm not going to use the madder because it is going to be more in the light, but I'm just going to fill that in there like that, and along that edge I'm going to make that a little bit darker and then lighten up my pressure. Just get that filled in all the way around. And then I'm going to take my madder, pop some in down here where it's tucked in, along that edge as well. And then my pale geranium lake, just to sort of join everything together, all the way around here. Roses are quite complicated because there are so many folds, so don't beat yourself up about it and don't agonise over it. Do what you feel is right. On this part here, I'm just going to use the pale geranium lake and just graduate that from the outside edge towards the centre. I'm going to make sure that's quite a rich line on the outside. Now, sticking with the pale geranium lake, I'm going to fill in this corner and graduate it out towards what will be our light source. Keep that quite pale there. Make this nice and rich. Alright, so the last petal here then, the bulk of the light's going to be hitting this part, but this is definitely going to get some light as well. So we're not going to use the madder at all. We're going to stick with the deep red and the pale geranium lake. So using the deep red this time, I'm going to follow the lines of Hanna. The lines of Hanna, that sounds like a play or a poem or something. And then down in this corner I'm going to start filling in because it's going to be darker again in there. I'm just going to lighten that up. And I'm going to stop at about there. And then I'm going to take the pale geranium lake and I'm going to work away. So I'm going back over what I've done. Take that up to the edge. Just working away here, taking my time. Now I'm going to go back over beside the line art again because, this petal's coming out from behind the other ones, so it is going to be slightly darker in there. Just where it sort of protrudes. And then you can lighten that up, and all I'm doing is just pulling up on the pressure and just letting the pencil sort of do its own thing across the paper. I'm not actually making it do anything, I'm just wiggling my hand about. Alright, so if we zoom out now, that has a really nice overall effect, and that's exactly what I was going for. I've heard people talk about colouring pages and drawings going through an ugly stage, and I think the idea is don't panic, just work away at it and finish what you're doing, and then take a step back and look, and you will see if it really does need more work or whether it's actually turned out okay. So I'm really happy with that, so I'm going to employ similar tactics for this other rose now. So let's take the pale geranium lake and let's get colouring. Now this one is slightly easier because the petals are a lot bigger and there's a lot more physical space for you to colour, so you're not going to be trying to jam in, you know, 3 colours and get a gradient and all that sort of thing. It's much easier when you've got more surface area to work with. So just say wang that down. Now I feel like this rose, the centre of it is angled more towards the viewer, so that might make things a bit easier in terms of putting our darker areas in, you know, for a bit of shadow. But we'll just take it a petal at a time. So there we go. So if this is faced more towards us, then there's going to be quite a lot of dark areas around here because it's angled towards us, so we're going to try and think about that as we go as well. Now the first part that pops out at me, because when you look at something like this it can be quite difficult and think, God, I don't even know where to start. To me, an obvious place to start would be this section here, because it is away from the light source, it is facing us, and it's not going to get any light at all. So that's really easy because you just go in with your madder, you know that's going to be dark. So light hand, and I'm going to go all the way over this section with the madder. And again, I'm not being precious about it here because I'm going to put a couple of layers down. So just start building up the colour. Like this. Because we want this nice and rich and dark. And what that's going to do is the surrounding petals, you know, the adjacent ones, are going to pop out a lot more if they've got a highlight on them because we've made this really rich and dark. Don't be tempted to go in with a heavy hand and just put down one coat of pencil. Unless you're using a pencil blending medium, that's different. But if you're just using pencil like I am, you're better to build up the layers because that's what gives you the richness and the depth. But obviously that comes at a price, and that is that you have to be patient. Take your time. So here we go, I'm starting to build up the layers now, and I'm kind of on to medium pressure now. I would say light to medium pressure. There we go. So that's a really good starting point for us, and it just helps to sort of, it helps your brain to compute what's going on. If you've got that starting point and you're absolutely sure that that's what's going to happen, it makes everything else a lot easier. So now that we've done that, this petal is splayed out from it, so it's probably going to catch some light, but there's also a curvature here, and this is coming back up towards the centre of the flower. So thinking about that, we're going to use the madder down the bottom here, and the darkest part is going to be right down the bottom there because it's at the opposite point from where our light source is. So if you run that down there and then take your medium red, honey, oh goodness me, deep red, medium colour, medium shade, mid-tone, whatever you want to call it, and start building that up. Again, the top part of the curvature might just hit a little bit of light, but it's not going to be much, so you don't even need to leave white there. But if you go to your palest colour, then that's just going to do nicely. So I'm going to do that. Again, I'm going over everything with it because it is away from the light source, so we want it to be quite sort of saturated and rich looking. Okay, so this petal here, because it's facing upwards, is going to see quite a lot of the light, but we have this part that's curving over. However, because the light is coming in this direction, this isn't going to cast a shadow because it's at the wrong angle. So I'm just going to use the pale geranium lake, and I am going to put another layer of that down over that entire petal. Just a light layer, but another layer nonetheless. And then in at the base here, I'm going to go to the deep red because this part here will be casting a shadow onto this petal because it's standing in the way of the light source. But it doesn't need to be too far out. So just, I tend to find sticking with the curvature of the line art is the best way to, if you want a realistic or a semi-realistic result. If you follow the line of the part that's adjacent to it, that's going to give you a bit more of a natural sort of curvature. You know, it's going to look a bit more sort of 3D rather than just blocking out a certain part and saying, right, that's going to be where the shadow is. So I'm just building these layers up. It's going to be a little bit darker in this corner, so let's just bring that out a wee bit. And there we go. Building up a deep red there. And then I'm going to go back to my pale geranium lake and just start to flesh this out a little bit. Build up some more layers. And using the madder, I'm just going to use it to follow the creases again. That's all I'm really using it for. I'm not actually colouring much in with it. And then back to the pale geranium lake and go over everything. We'll build up plenty of colour. Again, I'm kind of avoiding that sort of edge there. That's just a stylistic choice. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. Okay, so this section here might get a little bit of light at the top. It's facing a different direction. So we'll use the pale geranium. The pale geranium lake. I'm going to be fed up saying that by the end of this video. And I'm going to bring that all the way down. And then using the dark red, the deep red, sorry, I'm just going to make that a bit darker in there and then graduate it out and blend it in. Now this part's kind of tucked behind everything as well. So we're going to use the madder first of all, down in this bottom corner, but I'm just going to use a light layer of it. And I'm going to bring it up to where the lines are, and I'm going to heavy in those lines. And then I'm just going to let go and go back to my deep red. I don't want the madder to be solid down here because I've done this part, and again it's about having contrast between the two areas. So I want them to be slightly different colours. So by mixing the pencils, you're still going to get that little bit of contrast that you're looking for. And then up the top here, it's quite probable that that is going to see quite a lot of the light. So I'm going to keep it the sort of same as this part here and just go in with the pale geranium lake. And just a little light layer of that round there. Bring it all together. And then in closer to the line art, I'm going to press a little bit harder. Like so. Alright, so we can move round here now. And we're thinking about the curvature of the flower here, coming down and round. But this has an overhang as well, so this part's going to be pretty dark as well. So let's go back to the madder and we'll get a layer of that down first of all. And we'll bring that round. And I would say bring it quite far across, maybe to say there. And then we'll take the deep red after that. As I say, this isn't an exact science by any manner of means. If you don't agree with my theories or whatever and you feel you want to do something differently, then by all means, you know, be my guest, go ahead. This is just, it kind of makes sense in my head, and I like to find that nice balance between what is technically correct and what I think looks nice. So that's kind of, and that's why I like to explain what I'm doing as well, because even if it's not something you want to do exactly yourself, you can still find a, you know, maybe a slight variation that you'd prefer, and it helps with the thought process more than anything. Right, so having a look at that now, it looks quite flat, so I'm going to go back in with my madder and I'm going to darken this down on this side. And just bring that across and lighten up as I'm coming back across towards the left hand side. And I'm also going to run a line of the madder down under where that petal is folded over, because that will cast a shadow if the light's coming from the top end. So I've sharpened my pencil up there, and I'm going to make it quite obvious. I'm not going to blend it out because as I say, it is actually a shadow. And I'm just going to run that there. Oh, I'm pressing quite hard, as you can tell. There we are. And just to finish that part off, I'm going to take the pale geranium lake and I'm just going to kind of blend some of this out because it still looks a bit patchy. I don't want patchy. So this part here is probably going to get the most light. And yeah, because it's curled over as well, there may be some sort of sheen on it. I know that roses aren't particularly shiny. Well, most of them aren't. So we don't want really sort of stark highlights, but we want to make it pretty obvious that the light's shining on it. So I'm just going to work my way across here, and you can see I'm following the line art just the way I've been doing. Not rocket science. Keep a really light hand. And if you think it's too pale, you can go back over it. You can always darken it down. So now that I've got that layer down, excuse me while I twist this about a little bit. My hand only bends a certain way. And following that bottom line again, just with the pale geranium lake, I'm just going to build up a bit more colour on that bottom edge. And that helps to show that there is a bit of curvature there. Bring this up round. And then just blend it out with circular motions. There we go. So you can see that that looks as if there is a bit of shape to it now, which is quite nice. That's what we like. That's exactly what we would want. And this one down here is going to be dark in here, and it's probably going to be a lot lighter around this edge. But I think that might get a fair amount of light, so I think we'll just go with the deep red. I don't think we'll go as dark as the madder, but we can make it pretty dark down in this bottom part here. So I'm just going to take that deep red over most of it. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to use Hanna's lines as a guide. And then I'm going to go back over it down here, get that nice and deep and rich in the corner and up here, and then just release the pressure as I come out, keeping those little circular motions. Then I'm going to take my pale geranium lake, go back over what I've done very lightly, and then I'm going to bring that up around here. And it's going to be slightly darker on this bottom edge, so I'm going to press a little bit harder, and I'm going to put down a few more layers of the geranium lake, get it looking nice, and then just start to sort of blend all this together so that it's not as patchy. I'm going to go back to my deep red. I want it to be darker in this section here, and that's just a case of using your eye and deciding where a good place to stop is, and that can take practice. But again, just if you use light layers, you can keep going until you're satisfied. It's not likely that you're going to overdo it. And if you do, you will learn that lesson and you will not do it again, I promise. Right, that's looking a bit more like it. Now this one here, although it's up at the top, seems to me to be facing me, this part round the outside. So it's kind of, that's a difficult one. I think I'm going to go deep red. And I'm going to take it quite far up and keep it quite dark. And in this little bit here, I'm just going to block colour where that goes really skinny there. There we go. If I release the pressure off there and just take the pale geranium lake again. I'm so fed up saying that. Pale geranium lake, pale geranium lake. And you can, again, you leave a tiny little edge if that's what you want, or select a very pale colour. This is going to be quite dark down in here as well, so I'm going to use madder in this corner because it's definitely not getting any light in there. And then graduate it out. Back to the deep red. Follow the line art round here. And it's maybe getting a tiny bit of light there, so I'll just lighten up the pressure just round that edge. And then press heavy as I go back in towards the centre of the flower so I can blend out that pencil line that I'd already put in, and then down here I can go back over that, make that nice and dark. Good stuff. We've got this tiny little part here, and I'm going to make it madder. It's facing away from the light source. I don't know if you can hear the squeaking, but my puppy Pip, she's dreaming. She's lying flat out on her side. Her eyes are actually open, but she's asleep and she's wagging her tail. It's quite funny when she does that. And this side here, again thinking more about the light source, I'm going to take the deep red along the bottom edge, because the top edge where it's curled over might see a tiny little bit of light. So let's add that in, because the part beside it's quite dark, so that would be nice anyway, just to have that bit of contrast. Yeah, my puppy's getting big now. That's her. She is 16 weeks, so she's technically, in canine terms, she's not a baby anymore. She is more of a getting to the sort of toddler stroke child stage, and we've noticed a huge difference in her the last week or so. She's becoming more obedient, and she very much knows right from wrong now, and she's able to control her urges a bit better, which is nice for us. It means, you know, she's not swinging off your pyjama bottoms when you get up in the morning and things like that. That's always pleasant. Right, we've got this one in here, and again we want to be sort of dark at this sort of triangular area here. We want to be darker, and this is going to be light because the light is going to slap that straight on the edge there. It's facing towards where the light source is coming from. So sticking with the deep red, I'm going to put a little layer down here, and I'm going to make my triangle. So there we go, there's my triangle. And I know that's going to be the darkest area, so pop a little bit of madder in there. And that stands out perfectly, because I've put that highlight on that other rim, so that is just exactly what I wanted to happen. Maybe bring that up round there a little bit. Back to my deep red, and I can bring this round just up to where those little lines stop, and then just let off the pressure, and then go with the pale geranium lake. Here I go again. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to leave quite a lot of white there. Again, stylistic choice, you don't have to do it if you don't want to. And I'm going to come round here, and that is going to be very pale. Just blend this out a little bit, still a bit blocky where I made my triangle. Excellent. Now down in the middle here, there seems to be quite a lot of, you know, very sort of tight spaces. So I'm just going to go in with the madder and leave a little spot of white, exactly the way I did down with this middle section. And I'm just going to alternate them so that the white part is on a, you know, it's not next to the white part in the section of petal that's next to it. Because it is kind of difficult to decide what's going where and all the rest of it here. So I'm not going to take too much time to think that over. See, with these tiny middle bits, you don't have to worry so much. If you want to take the time to sit and figure it all out, then, you know, you can do that too. So this is starting to open out a bit now, so I maybe think there might be a sort of lighter edge on this section. I'm still sticking with my madder though, because it is quite tight in there, and to me that is very much the centre of the flower. So I'm just going to pop that in there. And it's only when I come to these slightly larger sections now that I'm going to start to think about, you know, the light source and what colours I'm using a bit more. So this part here is a bit strange because it goes all the way around. Now to me that you know, that shouldn't be all the one petal. So I'm going to use the deep red for this part, and I'm going to start off quite heavy in here. There's no indication of curvature to me either, which is why it's a bit odd. Because if it was going all the way around, you think it might splay out a little bit. However, that's absolutely fine. So we'll keep that nice and dark round there, and lighten it up towards here, because again, this might, you know, this might see a bit more sunlight. Just fill this in though. I don't want to get messy. I want to keep it nice and tidy. I'll lighten up, and I'll keep it lightest up in this top left because that's where the light source is coming from. So here I'm going to make that quite solid, and just as I come round I'm going to let off the pressure, and then I'm going to grab my pale geranium lake and I'm going to work that over the top of what I've just done and bring that into the middle here. And the same on this side. bring this up and round. Just join that up very, very lightly. There is pigment on the paper, but it's quite pale, and that's just to help with what we're trying to achieve with our light source. Excellent. So using the mid-tone, which is the deep red, I'm really struggling with this today, I don't know why. I'm going to kind of do what I did with these sections, but just doing it with the lighter pencil. And it's a bit easier now because the sections aren't as tightly packed together. Someone has been asking quite a lot about sharpening pencils, and I've kind of found things that work for me in weird ways, and oddly, when I am using my Polychromos pencils, I actually find that the Prismacolor Sharpener works really well. There's two holes in this sharpener, and one gives you a sort of longer, finer point, and then there's a shorter, stubbier point, and I find that the Polychromos do really well in that shorter, stubbier hole. It gives you a nice point. Right, so in here, my highlight is going to be on the outside edge, so I'm going to keep that quite rich and dark in there, and I'm pressing quite hard there, and then I'm just going to start to let off the pressure as I work my way out, and I'm going to make it a little bit darker up in there as well, just to make it interesting. No rhyme, no reason, just want to, which is okay, that's allowed. And the same with this next section as well. I'm going to have it nice and dark in here, and then as we come up round, I'm just going to lighten up the pressure a little bit, bring that around there. And the same in here, so tuck that right in the corner, pressing quite hard down at the bottom, and as I come up, I'm going to let that off a bit. Now I'm going to take the pale geranium lake just for this last bit, so it's not all so samey. It might be difficult for you guys to see the colour difference on camera, but again, with the naked eye, I can clearly see the differentiation between the palest colour and the darker colour. So that's just something to bear in mind as well. Okay, so round on this side it's going to be quite dark, so we'll go back to madder, and I'm just going to fill this all in here, and then leave a white edge there, like so. And this part I'm going to make really, really dark, so that's going to be a couple of layers, heavy hand, just whack it in. Again, it's a really small area. And then this section here, I'm going to make it the same down in the bottom corner with the madder, and then up round here I'm going to let up a little bit, and that is just aesthetics, because technically that should be all dark because it's facing away from the light source and it's got things round about it. However, so I'm just using the deep red now just to go back over that. There we go. And there we have our roses. Don't they look lovely? So all that leaves us now is this little petal down in here, and what I'm going to do for that is exactly the same as I did with the other one. So back to my palest colour, just map it out, get a little scribble down in there, and then I'm going to take my deep red and I'm going to start to follow that line art again in a sort of V shape. Just fill that in, blend it out, and then with my darkest colour I'm going to put a little bit just in here and along this bottom edge, and then back to my pale geranium lake, and I'm just going to blend all this out. I'm going back over what I've done. Lovely. Alright, I think we've got time just to finish off using our reds. And I want to put a little bit on the cuff here, and that again is to keep the cohesive nature of the picture. You want everything to look, you know, very sort of together and as if it's meant to be there. Now I want there to be a bit of differentiation between the red here and her bow. I don't want them to be exactly the same, so I'm going to kind of do what I did with the stems and the cuffs. So for the stone, I'm going to use the darkest colour in the mid-tone. So I'm going to take my deep red and I'm just going to put a little coat of that down around my gemstone here. I am going to put the highlight back in with a white gel pen, so I'm not even bothering about that. And then I'm going to take the madder. I'm going to fill in this bottom edge around here. And I'm just going to start very lightly building this up. And I'm going in a C shape, and it's kind of like I did with the thumb joint, and it's to get that nice curvature, because we know it's a round object. So back to my deep red now. And I'm going to bring that right round there. There we go. And when it comes to the bow, we're going to use the pale geranium lake, and we're only going to use a hint of the deep red. Right, so let's, once again, we'll colour in the areas that we know we're going to be working with. I'm going to make it a pretty ribbon. Once again, apologies for the grunting noises you can hear. The collies are playing. They are quite funny. We actually don't need to put the television on at all at night. We can just sit and watch them playing because they are really funny. Pip's decided that she likes to try and grab a hold of Jock's neck because his fur on his neck's quite thick. And when she starts to do that and he can't get to her, he bites her feet to try and get her to let go. Okay, so having the deep red now, again thinking about the light source. We've already done it here with the cuff, so we're going to do the same thing on this part of the ribbon, and we are going to start with it darker down the bottom here. Now this is it's going to be a bit strange in the sense that it's not going to match this directly because we have this bow here, so there's going to be a little darker line there, which is just the shadow being cast from that part of the bow. So if I go back to my pale geranium lake now, I can blend this out more or less straight away. Just leave that quite light there at the top. And in behind here is going to be reasonably dark, so I'm just going to use the pale geranium lake for that. Kind of block colour it. That looks okay. And on the bow here, this top part's going to be the lightest part because it's going to get some shine on it, so we'll try and leave a little white spot there. And just use the geranium lake to colour that in. Now you can take the deep red if you want to, and you can add in a few sort of dark spots because it is a knot, so there are going to be lighter and darker patches. That's entirely up to you. And this part of the bow as well is going to be slightly darker, so you can use the deep red there, and maybe down here too. And then we can go back to the pale geranium lake. I'm making it quite dark in here because this is where it's folding over. And the same in here, that's going to be quite dark in there. And then that'll lighten up over there. You only have to do this a tiny little bit, don't bring it too far out. And then dark there, and as it comes round towards the light source, you can lighten up your pressure, and then you can join that up. Now the light's going to be hitting here, so I think I'm going to take my deep red just to get this bit in here because that's going to be pretty dark in there. I'm not going to take it too far up again, go back to my geranium lake and bring that up. Now the lightest of pressures, the lightest of light, just to put some more colour down. And a bit heavier when you're down towards the base where the knot is. This part in here is going to be dark because it's twisted and facing away. So I'll just block colour that, and there's no need for me to worry too much about that. And the same with this last section of the actual bow part. I'm going to use the deep red down in where it's joining the knot because it's going to be kind of crowded in there. So it is going to be darker. And then I can use the geranium lake. I'm going to bring that down there just because it's at the bottom. And then lighten that up a little bit around there. Super duper. Now we've got all these tails as well. Now because the fabric is, it is sort of flowing, it's, you know, it's not wobbly, that is not the right thing to say at all. You know what I mean though, it's undulating because it's ribbon and it's fluid. So you can leave highlights and put in lowlights at various points here if that's what you want to do. But in here, it's going to be dark because again, the fabric's kind of bunched up. So you want that to be quite dark in there. So I'm just going to add that in. I'm bringing it further down on this section because I feel as if it's going to be hidden behind this part, so it's not going to see as much light. And then I'll put that dark red in there. I keep saying dark red, which is actually a separate colour, it's deep red. And then we'll do that as well. Again, just thinking because that's sort of flicked round and pointing up, I might get a little bit of light at the top but not necessarily at the bottom. So now I'm going back to my pale Geranium Lake and I'm going to just flesh these parts out. So where this bump comes round like this, I would think that would be where the light would hit it. So I'm going to leave that paler and then have this a bit darker down in here. And just that's a really simple one pencil gradient again. And it's a tactic that and a method that I've shown for people who are new to colouring, but even now I still use it a lot. It's so simple and so effective. Why would you not make use of it? And you're not messing about with like a gajillion pencils as well. And this part's going to be dark here because it's facing away as well. So I'll just block colour that too. I just want to blend this out a bit more because it looks a bit ropey. Want that to be as gradual as possible, so take your time and use really light feathery motions just to get it the way you want it. I'm going to do the same with this bit, I'll make it dark there, and as I come up towards the top of this bump, I'll just lighten it off because that's, if it's sitting up higher than the rest of the ribbon, then it's going to catch the light. Even if you do this really subtly, you know, if you fill in more of the white of the paper than I have, you will still be able to see it. So again, if you prefer darker colours and a more saturated page, please feel free to keep going over it. It's just, as I keep saying, it's just my preference. And I'm just going to do the same with this part as well. And there we go, we have our ribbon. Alright everyone, and there you have all of our lovely red pieces of our picture colour done now. Our roses are looking lovely. So I hope you've enjoyed following along today, and the next part of the colour along, we should be able to get through everything else. I'm hoping that the next part may be the last part. I might have to do a fourth part just for doing the very light background that we're going to do, which is just going to focus around the flowers. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, it'll be absolutely fine. So thanks very much for joining me once again. If you have enjoyed this video today, please feel free, give us a thumbs up. It's really helpful in terms of other people finding the videos and finding the channel. If this is the first video that you've seen, then feel free to subscribe, that would be awesome as well. And we shall see you very soon in the Colour Cave for some more fun and games with arty stuff. So we'll see you next time guys, bye for now.